Good day, Rolf Waldring. If you're a manager of others, whether you do that as a project manager, or as a work team leader, or as an executive who manages people who themselves manage people, you need to have a solid understanding of the idea of emotional intelligence. And you need it not as a concept, not just as knowing that, but as something that you can use as a pragmatic tool, as a way of increasing first your productivity and then the productivity and performance of the people you have working for you. And that's what this video is all about, emotional intelligence. It gives you a practical understanding of it and then moves on to talk about ways in which you can use that understanding to increase output, your productivity, and that of the people you have working for you. So if you manage others, you're constantly interacting with project team members, work team members, business stakeholders, executives, and vendor and supplier staff. And you need to understand that an individual's emotional intelligence, whether it's your own or that of those people, is a major contributor to a person's workplace effectiveness. So we're going to explore the concept together and then move on to some practical ways in which you can use it and increase it. And this is a complicated slide. And we're going to end up at the point at which all of these pieces come together. But we're going to do that one step at a time. We're going to take this concept of emotional intelligence and its dynamics and break it down step by step. And in doing so, we're going to bring together ideas and concepts from what we know from individual psychology, social psychology, and managerial psychology. We're going to start off with the idea that everyone has a self-image. Everyone has a perception of who they are and how they behave and what they do when they're stressed or being put under delivery pressure. It's an internal picture. Some people spend a lot of time exploring it and knowing it well. We call them self-aware. Other people just kind of treat it as there and don't spend a lot of time thinking about it, reflecting about it, or introspecting, as psychologists like to say. But we know some things now from decades of work by academic psychologists, academic researchers, and practical managers and coaches developing others. People who know themselves well are self-aware. And the best way to increase your self-awareness is through feedback, whether that's through the use of instruments, psychological self-descriptives, or from the feedback you collect from other people, the people you work for, the people you work with, and the people you interact with. Everyone also has a self-ideal, some sense of who they would like to be, how they should behave. And again, some people are very aware of it and introspect, think a lot about it, and reflect on it. Others just have this kind of as a vague sense of, this is the person I want to be. The thing about self-ideal is that it's a motivator. It helps us move ourselves forward to improve ourselves. People with poorly developed self-ideals do not strive to learn, do not strive to become more capable, increase their capacities. People whose self-ideal is not aligned with the predominant values of the society in which they're living are either change makers or misfits. Some people create positive change for that society. Other people behave in ways that are sanctioned by that society, not valued or approved of. Then we have a projected self-image. And a projected self-image is how we think others see us, how we think others see us behave, and how we imagine others see us wanting to behave. Our projected self-image comes from inside of us. It's something that we learn over time as we grow up to either value or not value. People who have a weak projected self-image, who's underdeveloped, for whom it has little motivational energy, are often not interested in how they impact other people and how they can improve their interpersonal interaction with others. These three things are related to one another. The sense of how they are related, is what creates our sense of self-identity. Who am I, and how do I want to be in the world in which I live? When we talk about people with high self-esteem, we're essentially talking about people whose self-image overlaps or is correlated with, to a large degree, with their self-ideal. How they see themselves lines up with how they want to be. And so now we have a working model of what personal identity really means. It's not the only model, but it's good for giving us a way of thinking about behavior at work, our own, and the behavior of other people. However, emotional intelligence is a broader concept. EQ takes into our actual behavior as well, how we actually behave when we interact with other people. And how we actually behave first reflects our internal psychodynamics, the relationship, conscious or unconscious, between who we think we are, how we want to be, and how we think other people see us. But it also takes into account our instincts, the many things that we have evolved to be capable of doing, many of which are operating in the preconscious or unconscious parts of our brains. Human beings have a long history of evolving capabilities, first as individual beings, but then also as social beings. And our social psychology is largely based on the many hundreds of thousands of years we lived in tribes. Our preconscious abilities are actually quite amazing. We don't think about how to catch a ball, we just catch it. And yet, when we try to build computer models, which the robotics people are doing, of those kinds of behaviors, we've discovered just how complex, how much those kinds of abilities involve interaction between perception and information processing that occurs in the preconscious or background parts of our brains. Also involves our bodies. Some people are extraordinarily capable, Olympic athletes. Others of us are not as capable in the same way, but have our own unique profile of physical strengths and weaknesses, things we like to do that vary over time and change progressively as we age. And finally, the circumstances we find ourselves in impact the way that we actually behave. In the workplace, we're impacted by the challenges which are put in front of us, the people we're working with. When we're walking down a beautiful country road, we're impacted by nature and the physical environment around us. So we behave, we act out the result of all of that dynamics in order to accomplish the things we want to achieve, in order to deliver the things at work that we're required to deliver, in order to interact socially and in our family lives with the people that we want to interact. And as we behave, others see us. They have a perception of us. They take that information into account and respond to it in their own behavior. Now, human behavior is not simple. It's made up of all of these elements interacting in the moment in fantastic ways. That's one of the reasons it's so difficult to create an artificial intelligence which is like human behavior. We pattern match in such complex ways and in such shifting ways and in such adaptive and responsive ways. The interaction between our physical bodies and the preconscious capabilities that our brains have evolved over time and the conscious abilities that we've evolved through the use of language and social interaction makes us a very complicated being, but also a very capable one. When we talk in the realm of emotional intelligence about congruent or transparent people, we're talking about individuals who have a high degree of correlation, statistical term, or overlap or similarity between all five of these dynamics. That is, that person's self-ideal is very close to self-image, but doesn't overlap completely. Otherwise, the individual is not motivated to become better or change their behavior. Is very close to how they think people see them, is very close to the way they actually behave, and is very close to how other people, in fact, see you behave. So we now have a definition of what it is to be a congruent individual, a high degree of similarity overlap between these 5 dynamic systems which make up our identity as humans. Congruent people have what we call social intelligence. They have little need to reshape either their perceptions of themselves or their perceptions of other people to align with or to be consistent with some part of this self-identity system, with their self-image, their self-ideal, their projected self-image, the way they actually behave, or the way others see that behavior. So now we have a model of what emotional intelligence is as a dynamic system, as a system which is constantly adapting and guiding us and allowing us to behave when we interact with other people at work, in our personal lives, and in our family lives. And that means we have a tool, a way of understanding behavior, and a way, therefore, of using that tool to increase our effectiveness, our ability to get what we want, our ability to deliver what we need to deliver at work, our ability to interact effectively with other people. So we have a way of moving from knowing that and knowing why to knowing how to increasing our smart habits and our in-the-moment capabilities so that we become more effective at work and achieve more of what we want to achieve in our social and family lives. What can you do now that you have this understanding to improve your emotional intelligence as a manager or project manager? Well, the first thing you can do is increase your self-awareness, because we have a long body of evidence that the more you know yourself, the more you're going to be effective when it comes to interacting with other people in the workplace. So self-awareness is the first step, increasing your sense of these 5 components of your self-identity, your personal identity. And the best way to accomplish that is through feedback, getting information from other people, getting information from tools that are self-descriptives, that give you greater degrees of insight into each of the 5 components of personal identity. So one of the things you can simply do is ask for feedback. What did you see me doing? How effective did you think I was? When I said this, what did you hear? Feedback increases self-awareness. But it's also important to learn how to provide useful and relevant feedback to the other people that you're working with, particularly those individuals who work for you and those individuals who you interact with as workplace peers. And giving feedback is a skill, and a skill can be learned. And you need to learn how to separate your observations of another person's behavior from your personal emotional reactions to that behavior. Many people think that feedback is about telling other people about how they feel. It's not. That's not the skill. That's sharing something about yourself. It's not providing feedback in a skilled and helpful manner. And of course, you can take courses that increase the ability that you have to provide others with useful and productive feedback. And here's one. It happens to be one which I created based on watching the behavior of people who were very skilled at providing feedback to others and breaking that down into a series of things that you can learn to do and integrate into the smart habit of effectively providing feedback to others. So now you have a model of what emotional intelligence is. And you can use that model on a day-to-day basis. In fact, what I do is I print a copy of this picture off and I leave it someplace where I can refer to it readily, particularly when I'm having difficulty understanding my interaction with one of the people who works for me, or I'm having difficulty understanding and having insight into the interaction between two of those individuals. By looking at the model and saying, I wonder what part of this tool is being activated here, is coming into play, I often get insights into people's behavior, which increases my understanding of my own behavior, my understanding of their behavior, and dynamically provides me with insight into how to improve my own interaction with them. But we're not out to be a psychologist here. We're not into motivation. We're not into therapy. We're not into deep insights into those dynamics. We're just trying to be a more effective manager of others by using this understanding. That's the payback for us. Thank you very much for your time and attention. Here's what I do. I recruit talented individuals for senior, newly defined jobs which haven't existed before, jobs which are changing very rapidly because the organization is growing or changing very rapidly, and transform the organization, roles in which the performance of the individual is focused on making things better. And I do this focused on rapidly growing and innovative organizations, problem-solving organizations. There are many other recruiters who are very talented at finding talented people for well-defined roles in well-established organizations. I've written a book on the performance challenge recruiting process, which you can access and download from my website. But I also coach recruiters and recruiting teams as they begin to understand how to add this particular recruiting process, which is so essential in a world where talent pools are constantly shrinking. And finally, I coach individuals to increase their self-awareness, which increases their interpersonal effectiveness. You can find out more about me at any of these websites, or reach out to me via email, or even just give me a call. Many people who've contributed to making me successful as an organizational leader. I've tried to summarize that experience and what I've learned from those people into just a few statements. And my guiding mantras are: people perform on the job, not resumes. I'm always aware of the fact that when I'm recruiting, that a resume is just the beginning. It's not the end point of the decision to hire someone. People perform on the job, not performance appraisals. I've implemented forward-looking performance contracting as the performance management system, and the results have been just outstanding in terms of increasing productivity and job satisfaction for those individuals. And finally, as a technology leader for many years, I learned that I wasn't managing technology. I was managing and leading and inspiring people who utilize that technology to accomplish the goals and objectives of our organization. And so I've really come to believe that talent is the key thing that we need to value in organizational life, whether that's in a for-profit organization or in a not-for-profit, non-governmental organization. Thank you again for your time and consideration.